The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for part 2 of our webinar series on Mentoring Millennials. My name is Katie Mouton, and I am the Digital Marketing Specialist at Insala. I'm also joined today by my colleague, Matthew Heilman.
Hi, everyone. Glad you're joining us today.
So before we tell you about ourselves, we want to go ahead and cover a few housekeeping items. All right, just a second. Okay, so the webinar will be recorded and sent via email to everyone. So you'll have a chance to rewatch it at any time. The email should go out a couple of hours after the webinar. We usually try to get it done the same day. If for some reason you don't get that, please just pop me an email and I'll make sure that it gets sent out to you. We have muted all participants, but we do want you to participate. We're going to be asking some questions throughout, and we would love to get your responses. Also, there's going to be a time at the end of the webinar where you can ask us questions as well, so make sure you have your chat box open for that. If we're unable to answer any of your questions in the time that we have, please feel free to follow up with us after the webinar. We will be sharing our contact information as well as our LinkedIn link so that you can connect with us directly. Lastly, don't forget to get social. We encourage you to tweet during the webinar using hashtag InsalaWebinar. We also want to go ahead and give you some information about Insala. For those of you that may not be familiar with Insala, we're a leading global provider of mentoring software and consulting. We offer a variety of consultant-driven products ranging from mentoring, alumni, and offboarding solutions, as well as coaching. Our mission is to connect organizations and people throughout their shared career journeys. If you would like to follow us on LinkedIn or join our LinkedIn, hold on just a second.
Can you see the screen?
No. Hold on, we're having a technical issue. 1 second, sorry.
It's not letting me share the screen.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. We had a slight technical difficulty. There we go. Can everyone see this? It might help if you can actually see the screen. Okay, and we're going to continue. All right, so like I said, if you would like to follow us on LinkedIn or if you'd like to join our Mentoring Thought Leaders Club group, I am sharing those links in the chat with you right now. You can just click those through. We'd love to have you join us and be part of the conversation. All right. Okay, so as I said, my name is Katie Mouton, and I am the Digital Marketing Specialist here at Insala. I've been doing digital marketing for 9 years, and I've been with Insala for the past year, but I have been a millennial for 31 years. Yes, I did just say my age. The thing that we love about doing this is that Matthew and I are both millennials, so we get to talk about our own generation and really get to share how being a millennial has changed our lives and really how we work and how we interact with our company. So I'm really excited to be here. Matthew, would you like to tell everyone about yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Heilman. I am the implementation consultant of learning and development here at Insala. That's a lot to say, but I'm really your friendly neighborhood Insala trainer. I've been in education and training for the past 10 years, and I've been with Insala for the past 3. I've done a lot of portal implementation regarding mentoring, so very familiar with how mentoring programs work. And like Katie said, I'm also a proud millennial myself, been around computers and technology my entire life. It's just something that very native, digital native growing up. So it's a pleasure to meet you all today, and I hope this is a great session.
All right, let's go to the next screen. There we go. Okay, so as I said, this is part 2 of our webinar series on mentoring millennials. We did want to do a quick recap of the first webinar that we did, which was entitled Making the Change for Your Organization. So during that webinar, we went through what millennials are asking for. We talked about what they want from their managers, the companies they work for, and what they're asking to learn. All of this led to mentoring. You know, millennials are really asking for it, and if you don't give it to them, they're going to find it from someone else. We also discussed the differences between elder and younger millennials. And yes, there are two different groups of millennials. Matthew and I are elder millennials. And we kind of talked about how mentoring should be done differently for these two groups. They're very, very different, even though we're part of the same generation. We grew up differently. We've had different exposures to companies and to technology, and it really changes what we need from the mentoring program. And then we also took a quick look at the do's and don'ts of mentoring. These really focused on where our strengths lie and how, our mentors can really help us by conforming a little bit to the way that we work so that we're able to learn everything that they have to teach us. We did briefly touch on ROI during the last webinar, but that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. So I'm excited to get started. All right, so the agenda today, we're going to start by talking about what our organizations are going to see as far as boosting the bottom line with mentoring millennials. So we're going to talk about attracting top millennials, how that's going to help your organization, increasing your millennial retention rates, keeping your millennial employees engaged, and then we're going to try to kind of change the pace a little bit, and we're going to talk about ROI for the participants. These are your mentors and mentees in the program. We want to make sure that we're able to focus on both areas here. All right, before we get started with the actual webinar, we do like to do this poll at the beginning of these webinars. We want to see who you are. We want to see who's been able to join us today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll, and if everyone could please answer and let us know, what generation do you represent? We'll just give y'all a few seconds to vote for me. Okay, they're coming in. Last time we kind of had a mix of everyone. We were really surprised. There was almost an equal number of, baby boomers, Generation X, and millennials. We didn't have any traditionalists last time, though.
And definitely looks like this time we are about the same. Words are hard. Baby boomers are at 36%, millennials at 36%. We have way more Gen Xers this time around, though. We didn't have that many last time.
Yes, like Matthew said, we've got another kind of close race between baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials, and we have some traditionalists. So thank you, everyone, for joining. We're really excited to have you here. This is a topic that Matthew and I are both very passionate about, and we are going to get started. Let me just go back to the slideshow, and all right, let's go. I think we need, is that the first slide, or we need to back up one? That's good? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so why are we talking about ROI? In any investment, you want to see a return, obviously. So mentoring is a business investment, and a lot of people don't see it that way. They see it as something that you just bring in. It's a program for career development, and yes, it is that, but you're putting your time, you're putting your resources, and you're putting your money into this program, and in order for it to be something to your company, you have to have a return on that. So that's really why we wanted to take the time to focus an entire webinar on this topic. ROI is very important, and it's also going to help you get the program started. Your stakeholders want to know that they can get something back from this, or they might not be, ready to start something like this. All right, so as I said, we're going to talk about ROI in two different ways. We're going to talk about the organization, how your organization's ROI comes about, what you can really get from your mentoring program with your millennials. And then we're also going to talk about what they can get from the mentoring program, but not just the millennials, their mentors as well. We want to make sure that this is a mutually beneficial relationship and that everyone is benefiting. All right, so let's get started with our first agenda item. This is for the organizations. The first three agenda item really focuses on what your organization is going to get back from mentoring your millennials. So the first one is attracting talent. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so corporate, oh, this is the word I struggled with yesterday. Corporate culture. Try to say that 5 times fast. You can't do it. It's not easy. Corporate culture is changing in a big way, and companies who pay attention and adapt to these changes will be the ones attracting the most talented, passionate, and dedicated millennial employees. It's been said, and we're going to say this several times throughout the webinar, that we're job hoppers. It's not a term that I particularly love, but it is the reality of the way that a lot of people see our generation. And a big thing that's going on nowadays is that you do have these millennials that are changing positions so often, but we're also very skilled. Like I said, we're very passionate and we are ready to work for you. So attracting us into your organization should be a priority, and you can do that through many different ways. All right, so you might have heard this term before, the war for talent. It's real and it's really happening. So this term was coined 30 years ago by a man named Stephen Hankin, and he used the term to refer to an increasingly competitive landscape for recruiting and retaining talented employees. Today, we're going to really focus on recruiting and retaining millennials. So ultimately, this is why millennials can job hop. It's because the war for talent is happening out there. And there's, a lot of jobs available right now, but there's not that many millennials that are just sitting there waiting to get a job. Most of us already have jobs. So I know for me, a big thing that I've seen a lot lately is that I get LinkedIn messages multiple times a week from recruiters and from people who actually work for the companies wanting me to come interview for a job. I am not actively looking. This is not that I have it on LinkedIn that I want recruiters to contact me. They're just using it as a resource to really find us. So we're not having to go out and look for these jobs anymore. And that's a big change from what it used to be, because used to we would have to actively look. You'd have to go online, you'd have to go to the company, and that's just not happening anymore. And the reason for that is because this war for talent is taking place. And we know that right now millennials have the upper hand.
Yeah, and continuing on really with what Katie was saying is that it's so easy to apply for new jobs. I mean, because the mentality she was just discussing about, well, before if you wanted to network to get a new job, you'd have to figure out exactly who is there. You have to figure out, write up a cover letter, get everything established, figure out how you're going to contact them, what you're trying to accomplish. And now with something like LinkedIn, literally you can go, it'll give you a suggested list of jobs, even if you're not looking for a job, and you can click easy apply and it's done. You can apply for 5 different jobs in 10 minutes. So it's something that now that it's become so easy to do, people that are at all not engaged or not interested in their current jobs, the opportunity to leave is there. So people aren't wanting to leave jobs because they want to, it's just, the grass is always greener on the other side. If someone sees the opportunity to do that, millennials like ourselves have the opportunity to very easily move without causing too much of an issue. But for the record too, I am not looking for a job either. Just throwing that out there.
And a stock answer that I like to give to these recruiters and these, employees of these companies reaching out to me is that I'm not currently in the position to change jobs right now. I think this goes back to what we said in the last webinar. You've got your elder millennials like myself and Matthew. We own homes. I have 2 children, and one of them is only 7 months old. I've got to have the benefits that I have now. I have to be able to have a little more freedom. And if I don't have a company that can give me that, there's no way I can leave. But I also like to tell them, yeah, I'm not looking right now, but I'll keep you in mind in case that changes in the future. That leaves the door open for me because things do change. And so having that introduction already made that I didn't even have to make, if a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, I'm ready to look for something else, I have that door already open. And that's something that we didn't have in the past. When I first started looking for jobs, it was very hard for me to figure out, how am I going to get in these places? I don't know these people. It's a little scary for me. And now I have that message sitting there that's already started by someone else. So if I reach out to them again, it's going to be much easier to have that conversation. All right, we want to hear a little feedback from you. We love when you participate. This is something Matthew and I love to do throughout our presentations. We want to know, what do you think draws millennials to an organization? What attracts them? This is all about attracting them and how we get them there. So what do you think are the best benefits, what they're really looking for from an organization? Put your comments in the chat box and we'll kind of go through them, and then we'll follow it up. It leads into what's going on next. All right, we already got some coming in. Pay money. Everyone says money.
No, and I
No,
think
and I
it's
think
really
it's really
important too
important
to
too
understand.
to understand that with draws and millennials, we're not just saying that this is just millennials. This is going to be any group of people. It's what Katie was discussing before, that with the younger millennials or the people that are earlier in their careers, they're more interested in looking around to see the best benefits to them. So a lot of these things apply to all generations of workers. It's just the millennials may be in the best situations to make that movement to get exactly what they want. They're willing to take the risk, and they're not interested in staying in one place for 20 years. They want what's best for them at that time.
All right, let's see. We've got some more coming in. So challenging work, agile working, support network and education, training opportunities, flexibility, work-life balance. Oh, they're coming in quick. Work-life balance, culture, brand, values. These are all really great. Meaningful work, learning and growing, recognition. I think y'all are just right on point here. Opportunities for growth, improving their position and career. I'd assume a good workplace culture, but also that gives a chance to make enough money to be independent. That's a good one. Flexibility, challenge, flexible schedule. I'm seeing a lot of flexibility in here. Flex schedules, opportunity for advancements. I'm going to have to stop at some point, but these are all really good. Impact on community, development opportunities, mentoring culture. All right, I'm going to stop there. These are amazing. I think that y'all really kind of get what millennials are looking for. And for me, I mean, a lot of these are things that I definitely want from a company.
And I appreciate too, I really like that a few people brought up culture, because some of those things, I mean, obviously money is great. Money is wonderful. But at the end of the day, culture sometimes can be a free concept. They want to be at a place that wants them to be there. They want to be at a place that when they go to work, going to work is just part of their day. It's not, I go to work 9 to 5 and then I leave and work is gone forever. We want it to be part of our overall experience in life. So culture is one of those great things that doesn't cost a lot of money.
I agree. A culture is a big, big thing for me, definitely. All right, so this slide may be a little bit deceiving. It does say more than just the traditional benefits. That does not mean that we don't want the traditional benefits. We want competitive pay. We want health insurance. But for us, those are expected. I mean, if you're not offering those, we're never going to come to your company, really. But we want a company that's going to give us even a little more than that, because we have such different needs from other generations. So the first one, flexible work hours and location. Okay, so flexible working hours. I'm going to really focus on the hours and the location, because that's a big thing for me. You know, I commute, I work an hour from the office. Like I said, I also have 2 young children. So having flexible hours and location for me is a big deal. As far as the flexible working hours, 81% of millennials think that they should be allowed to make their own hours. 22% of millennials prefer to go into work every day. I'm sorry, prefer not to go into work every day. Sorry, I was confused for a second. And then, 59% of millennials say flexibility will improve productivity. And 49% say it'll improve their happiness. So as you can see, flexibility is a big deal for your millennial employees. And that's what made companies like Facebook, Apple, Google, they really stand out, because that's something that they do offer to their employees. All right, let's see. The next one is student loan repayment and assistance. This is a big one. For a lot of us, and a lot of millennials haven't been out of college that long. I've only been out for 9 years, and some millennials are just getting out now. And a lot of us do have student loans, and we don't want to start our lives off in debt. So being able to have some assistance there is really great. We appreciate it. Health and well-being support. This is kind of what I was talking about, where we don't want just the traditional benefits. Yes, we want health insurance. It's important to have that, but we also want to be supported all the way around with our health and our well-being. So anything that you can give us, I know sometimes companies give a mental health day. It's a great time just to unwind and take your mind off work. Being able to have gym memberships. A lot of places do really healthy snacks in the office, healthy eating. We're all really big about what we can do to better ourselves. And that's not just in our careers. So having that is a wonderful asset.
I will say, Katie, just to kind of go along with that too, is that some of the research we've done has talked about that 35% of millennials have turned down job offers purely because they were dissatisfied with the benefits at the job. So that has to do that maybe they went through the entire interview process and said, wow, this is a great place to work. And then when they finally got to that final step of here are your benefits, almost half of them have declined that because we found even 94% of millennials say non-traditional benefits make employers more attractive. And that's especially going over some of the last parts Katie was talking about health and well-being support. Those aren't really traditional things in particular. Sometimes they're perks, sometimes it's just part of the culture, but it's things that the millennials are really, really looking for is something that's out of the box and a little bit different. And that also continues on with what we're talking about today, mentoring.
Mentoring. We want mentoring. You're going to hear us say over and over and over again, especially this webinar and even the last and the next one. We're going to continue to talk about we want development opportunities, specifically mentoring. There's a million reasons we want mentoring. We went through a lot of them in the last webinar that we did. We want someone to be there for us, to help us fit into the culture, to give us feedback. We're going to continue to talk about those, but just, keep mentoring in the back of your mind because we're asking for it specifically. All right, so here's a big stat for you. I like to use stats, and there's quite a few of them that you're going to hear us say and see on the screen in this webinar. 79% of millennials believe that mentorship programs are crucial to their career success. Crucial. I feel like that's a really big word. It's so important that we think it's going to really make or break us. Top talent requires top opportunities. If you want to attract the caliber of employee that will take your company to the next level, creating these opportunities are going to really impact that. I read a great article, and in it said development opportunities must span beyond formal classroom training and performance plans. Your organization needs to offer room for employee creativity and autonomy. Autonomy is so big for us. We want to be independent, and being able to do that means that we have to learn that from someone, and that's where our mentor comes into play. We really want to have a high level of feeling like we're being a part of something. And if we can't be brought in by someone, we might flounder a little bit, and that scares us.
And definitely coming from a training perspective, even talking about mentoring definitely plays into that training aspect because I'm sure all organizations have some form of onboarding and some form of training. And those are all wonderful, but just especially from a training aspect, once training's done, that means training is done. There could still be a lot of on-the-job work. There could still just be continuous education development that's being done by the employees. And millennials need to know that once they are going in, that's not it. You haven't been trained and okay, off you go. So having a program in place like this is just offering the opportunity for continued education and learning throughout the organization without having a formalized process. And that's adding to the flexibility, and that's just letting millennials know that you're there to care for them and you're happy to help them be nurtured to stay with the company.
I think that we need to take it back to exactly what we're talking about here, and that's attracting millennial talent. So this stat alone should show you how important mentoring is. And if you're not offering it to them, they're not going to come to your company. They really want something to help them develop. And mentoring, the great thing about it is because, like we said, they want health and well-being benefits as well. This is going to not only develop them professionally, but also they're going to develop personally, which is a huge thing for millennials. All right, so moving right along. So you've attracted them. That's great. Now you've got to keep them. You've got to increase your retention. Retention rates are declining, and it is because of this job hopping mentality and that we're constantly looking for something else to move forward in our career. I got a little information from doing my research. A new hire can cost a company almost 1.5 times the base salary range. So that means if you hire an employee for $40,000, it might have cost you $60,000 to actually hire them. So to have them come in and then leave in the first couple of years is not going to help you at all. It's actually going to drop your bottom line. And here we're talking about boosting it. So, millennials are looking for opportunities that will allow them to have upward mobility in their career. And if you can't get them that, if you're not willing to take the time and invest in that for them, they're not going to stay. I know for me, I've been in the workforce since December of 2009. That's when I graduated college. Graduated, had an internship. They immediately hired me on. I stayed with that job for 5 years. I loved that job. That was my dream job. And not a lot of millennials find that in their first job, but I was lucky enough to do that. Unfortunately, the company was bought out and they laid off a lot of people. I was one of those people. But, I didn't let it keep me down. I kept moving forward. And my goal was to find another job like that The reason I love that job so much is because I knew I was going somewhere in that job. I was able to have a mentor. I was able to have someone who helped me continuously progress in my career. In those 5 years, I went from intern to managing my own department. It was a huge leap and I did a lot of work for it, but I had a lot of help. So I wanted to stay with them. Now, since then, this is my fourth job since then. And the reason I continuously left jobs is because I wasn't getting those opportunities. I was promised them, so I was attracted. But once I got there, a year in or almost a year in, I'm asking, okay, where do we go from here? And I felt like I'd earned it. I felt like I'd done the work. And they'd say, oh, well, no, I mean, in 5 years, I still see you doing this. That wasn't what I wanted. So I left.
I would say I probably definitely have a very similar situation to Katie. I fresh out of college. I actually got my job before I even graduated, not bragging or anything. But I was with that opportunity actually for 5 years, and then something happened in my life where I had to move. I was planning on staying there for a long time. So both of us are giving an example that straight out of college, we both found jobs we were extremely happy with and we were successful at, and we would have stayed at, but something happened. And then since then, I believe I've had about 3 or 4 jobs as well, because I would go to an organization, I would be there for about a year or two, and then I'd say, what's next? And similar to Katie, I would get something very similar to, well, this is it. I mean, you can do more at this job, but this is kind of where we see you for the next 10 years. And being in your early 20s and hearing something about this is your job for the next 20 years, out. And most of those positions I left rather quickly because I wanted opportunities to grow. And I would have definitely stayed there if I would have had more opportunities. But I was told flat out, no, this is it. This is your job now.
All right, so another stat, like I said, I love them. Okay, so 43% of millennials plan to leave a job within 2 years. Refer back to what I said about how much it costs to hire a new employee. So if you're losing them within 2 years, that's a big deal. If you haven't looked at the Deloitte 2018 Millennial Survey, I highly suggest you do that. I don't have the link ready to share with you. I'm sorry about that. But I do want you to do that. And I'll send that out in the email when I send out the webinar recording to everyone, because I think it's really important. There's a lot of great information there. And that's where I pulled this stat from. From an author, his name is Simon Sinek, he said something really great to me. There's no app for job satisfaction. And a part of job satisfaction is feeling like you're continuously growing, developing, having new opportunities. We keep using that word, opportunities. That's where mentoring is coming in for us. If you don't feel like you're growing, you're not going to stay in a job. Matthew and I just both said that. We left jobs because we had nowhere to go. That's a trend for millennials. We're constantly wanting to go up and beyond and keep moving forward in our careers. And millennials have traditionally been a really hard group for employees to actually retain because we're not afraid to change jobs. This is why we're leaving within 2 years. All right, so again, we want to hear from you. Why do millennials leave? We're going to discuss this in a minute, but we want to go ahead and get your answers here. Why do you think? We've talked about why we left. Both of us were leaving for opportunities. It wasn't the money. Not for me. Most of the time I was making the same amount or even a little more times, and I took a step back. It's because I needed something more that I wasn't getting. So what do y'all think? All right, here we go. They're coming in. Woohoo! Lack of challenge or opportunity, lack of flexibility, equal opportunities. Those are both really good suggestions. What else do we have? All right, slow career progress, money. We will always see money no matter what. Money. Distrust cultural values didn't manifest themselves. I like that one. Thank you, Jack. That is a great one because along with not having the opportunities, there was a position that I was in where the culture, I don't use this word very often because I feel like it's very extreme, but it was terrible. I was not happy. I didn't feel like the values that I thought the company had going in were the same ones that I saw. And when you go to work every day not wanting to be there, it's not the right place for you. All right. Ooh, here they come. All right. Culture no longer meets their needs. A disconnect. That's what I was talking about. Great. Personality and culture. An ethical work environment. Lack of progression, career paths not clear. Lack of feedback from supervisors. Automation. That's a good one. Career path and opportunity to manage. those are all great. I mean, I think, again, y'all are right on track. And these are some of the things we're going to talk about. All right, so top reasons millennials leave. Here they are. These are the ones for us. So the first one, company culture. I just talked about that. That was a reason for me. Especially when you've had a job where the culture was so amazing and you really felt like you were part of a team, that's a big deal. If your company culture is not on point, millennials are not going to stick around. We're the most collaborative generation that has ever been. We want to work with people. We want to be around people that we enjoy. We want to feel like we are appreciated. I'm going to say this again, but it's something that I've heard before and I completely agree with. We want to work for a company that cares about the people more than the money. I want to feel like I'm important to you. And I can't do that if your culture isn't where it needs to be.
And continuing on with collaborative, it has to just do with technology too, is that I don't have to go across a building or drive anywhere, not even shoot an email. I can send a Slack or a Skype message, and I can constantly be in communication with others because they want feedback, which I know we're going to talk about, but it's just the ability to collaborate has never been easier than it is today. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that you need tons of technology for that, which technology does help. But at the very base root, people will find very easy ways to communicate.
All right, next, a lot of you said this, we've talked about it before. We're going to talk about it again. Flexibility. I can't stress this one enough. Flexibility is a big deal. People are going to leave if you're not willing to be flexible. For me, like I said, I commute, I have kids. Luckily, I work for an organization that is amazingly flexible with me. My son was sick 2 days last week, and I was able to work from home. That really helped me not having to take PTO and being able to save those days for later on if there was some sort of emergency, because I could work. I just couldn't send him to daycare. Having that, being able to work remotely and the hours is a really big deal for millennials. And I think Matthew has kind of a different take on flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, definitely location is great. We talk about that all the time. I think the other part too is just the actual job flexibility, because we've all been in those situations where, maybe as an employer, you're looking and saying, okay, when I'm hiring a person for this job, I mean, this is the job. Like, there's not a huge career path necessarily ahead of them, and that happens sometimes. But I think the other part is just overall job flexibility. When I take this role, what else can I do or learn? Can I help develop processes that connect us to other departments? Can I develop materials for this? Can I work with someone else and teach them? So it's not just saying this is your job, this is what you're doing, but even within one job itself, there's so many different avenues that you can be flexible on that to give people the opportunity to grow, even if they're staying in the same position.
I'm really glad you said that, Matthew, because I think that company culture and the flexibility that you're talking about really go hand in hand. Matthew's our trainer. I'm in marketing. Typically, we don't work together. Guess what? We find ways to work together almost every single day. We love to collaborate, and we love to figure out how, I have a point of view from the marketing perspective, but how does training see how this marketing can work for us? There's a reason that we do these webinars together. And it's not just because we're millennials. That's a big part of it, but it's because we collaborate so well together that it just makes everything work, and it makes the culture around here even better. Meaningful work. This is a big one, and we talked about this in our last webinar. Meaningful work. We are passionate about what we do. Millennials don't just want to have a work-life balance. We want to intermesh our personal and our professional lives together so that they really work together. We don't think of it as, okay, I'm at home in the mornings, I go to work during the day, I'm at home in the evenings, I don't think about anything else. No, a lot of us check our emails in the evenings. A lot of us might work from home in the evenings. But, we do have families, and we want to preserve that family life, but we also want to do something great, and we feel like we're contributing. I always say that I'm mom at home, and I get to be Katie at work. So having somewhere to go where I feel like I'm contributing to the company is a big deal for me. Last, we've said it before, we'll say it again, career development opportunities. This is where mentoring comes in. We want opportunities to grow. A lot of you said that in the chat box whenever we asked you, why millennials are leaving. Like I said, if you're not going to give us this, we're going to find it somewhere else, because someone else will give it to us.
I think the one really important thing to say too is why millennials leave, and it's come up even in the chat when we were talking about it, was that money, yes, money is great, but money is not the only reason people leave jobs. In fact, a study said that 78% of millennials say it is more important to enjoy work than to make a lot of money. Because you have to remember sometimes that if people are leaving a job, they are not always making a huge life change. They're not always making, you know, 10, 20, $30,000 more. A lot of the times when millennials are doing the quote unquote job hopping, they're probably going into similar roles and similar pay. They're leaving because they want new benefits, they want new opportunities, they want to change, they want to make a difference. So yes, money is always going to be a driving factor for any generation, but money is not the only reason why people leave jobs.
All right. So among millennials, there's a collective shout to employers to develop them, mentor them, and give them opportunities to lead. So organizations that wish to retain high potential millennial talent need to be willing to invest in their development right away. Opportunities, mentoring, it's right there on your screen. You know, companies that offer their millennial employees the ability to grow within their organization are more likely to hang on to them. We've seen so many statistics and so many studies that say that when you give to millennials, when you give to us, we're willing to give back 1,000,000 times more because we want to stay with a company that cares about us. We want to stay with a company that is going to meet our needs, and our needs specifically are mentoring, growth opportunities, moving forward, upward mobility in our career. Those are a big deal for us. You know, millennials intending to stay with their organization for more than 5 years are twice as likely to have a mentor. Actually, it's 68% of millennials say that. That's a big number. So if they're twice as likely to stay, why wouldn't you give that to them? That's going to boost your ROI because you're not constantly having to hire people. You're not going to have that turnover, and you're going to increase your retention rates. Another quick fact here, millennials are frequently looking for purpose in their work, so allowing them to explore that space while they move through their career will increase their enjoyment with their job. We just talked about that, meaningful work. And exploring that, they can do that through mentoring. Their mentor is going to be able to lead them in the right direction so that they're able to retain them. All right, so I kind of struggled with this webinar a little bit. I couldn't figure out where to put boosting engagement. Is it before retention? Is it after retention? But ultimately, I wanted to talk about retention first so that you knew how important it was to boost engagement, because in order to retain them, you have to engage them. So what does engagement actually mean? Matthew, you said something really great yesterday that I'd love you to share with everyone.
So yes, so what does that actually mean? Because when it comes to engagement, that could be very broad, especially when it comes to learning. I used to be a teacher in a classroom, and I'd have a principal come in saying, how are they engaged? And they say, well, they're not engaged, they're all off task. And looking around, I'd say, no, they're not off task, they're doing exactly what I told them to do. So engagement's a very iffy word because it can be described in a lot of ways. But I think the best way to describe what engagement means is I care or I don't care. It has nothing to do with being off task. It has nothing to do with, oh, they're checking their Facebook again, or I guess that makes me sound old. Snapchat. Oh, that was the word from the last webinar, was Snapchat. But it's not being off task. It's not, you know, taking a long break. It's either they care about it or they don't care about it, because we can be engaged in something and interested, and I still need a break, and I might get a little off task, but we want to make sure that you're keeping the people interested. You're keeping us interested in what we're trying to do and what our job is, and we want to be there. That's how we need to think about engagement.
You know, Matthew, I think you're right. And a big thing that I've read in a lot of the research I've done when writing articles about mentoring millennials and in doing this webinar is that people think that millennials aren't loyal. It's not that we're not loyal to a company. I think we are fully capable of being very loyal to a company. I was with a company for 5 years that honestly I would have worked at for the next 30 years. I was loyal to them. I was also extremely engaged. And the other positions that I left, I was not engaged. I did not care if I was productive. I did not care if I was giving back to the organization. And a lot of millennials feel that way. Some stats, only 29% of millennials are engaged at work. That is a really low number. That means 71% of them are not engaged at work. You know, and engaged millennials are 64% less likely to say that they will switch jobs if the job market improves in the next 12 months. Okay. So you've got 29% of them that are engaged. And of that 29%, 64% would be less likely to leave. What does that tell you? That if they're engaged, they're going to stick around. So engagement and retention directly relate to each other.
And definitely connecting this another stat, we have to remember that 43% of millennials plan to leave a job within 2 years. And I know Katie was already kind of mentioning that, and I know we have just thrown a lot of statistics at you. But I guess the long short of it, I think that's a saying, is that if people are engaged, they're going to want to be there. Just like when I've done trainings in the past, I'm always going to make progress with someone that wants to be there because they want to learn, they're invested in it. The people that just show up and they're just there because they had to be there, they're not going to get anything from it. So that's just the training perspective. But you want people to show up and want to be there, because those people, no matter what setting they're in, they're going to be invested in your company, and they're going to want to be there, and they're going to stay there.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, how do you engage your employees? Well, we value opportunities. Millennials value opportunities. We've said it 50 times, I think, already. I had to make an entire slide about it because it is that important. So, how do you get them? We are talked about attracting. How do you retain them? We talked about retention. Now we're talking about engagement. Engage them. To attract them, they have to know that they're going to be engaged. To keep them, they have to be engaged. And in order to do that, you have to give them opportunities that they want. If I'm being mentored by someone and I feel like I am on, they help me create a career path, we've set goals, I'm achieving those goals, I feel like I am more productive at work than I have ever been, I am fully engaged. Why would I leave? It would make no sense for me to go. And it doesn't matter if I'm offered more money. If I feel like I'm with a company that I'm going to be able to move forward with, I don't want to go somewhere else and start over. So, there's a misconception in, yes, we might job hop, but it's not that we want to. It's that we're reaching for something. We're trying to get somewhere. We're trying to get for those opportunities because we value them so much. All right, get ready for some more stats because I'm going to throw them out to you. All right, so 3 ways to increase engagement. This should be such a big priority for any organization. Feedback and appreciation. Feedback is such a big deal for millennials. I don't think she's on. I thought she was going to join. My mom and I have an amazing relationship, and I talk to her every day because I'm constantly asking for her feedback. And I think that that's kind of a trend among millennials, is that we have these relationships with our parents where I always say that she adults way better than I do. So I'm looking for her to come back to me, and it's not just her. I'm looking for that at work too. I want to know how I'm doing. I want to know if this is going well. I want to know if I'm on the right path. I can't get that if no one gives me any feedback. So only 19% of millennials say that they receive routine feedback from their managers, and only 17% of millennials say that that feedback is actually meaningful. So it's not just about giving them feedback, it's about giving them feedback that's important to them. All right, so let's see. Oh, one more. Sorry, I missed a stat. Can't do that. 75% of employees receiving at least monthly recognition are satisfied with their job. If they're satisfied with their job, what does that mean? It means they're willing to stick around. All right, so flexibility, there's that word again. I feel like, you might feel like we're going around in circles, but it's just that important that we have to keep talking about it. 41% of employees would trade 1/10 of their salary for more flexibility. I mean, they're giving up money for this. And we did talk about that. But, we're not just willing to go to a job for money. Yes, we want money. I want to pay my bills. It's kind of important to me. But we also want to have that flexibility so that we still enjoy what we're doing. It's not all about the money. Lastly, offer opportunities for professional development. Offering career training and development would keep 86% of millennials from leaving their current position because they're engaged. That's kind of how it all ties together. All right, so give them what they want. Mentoring. I read an article not too long ago, and the title, I don't remember it word for word, but it was something like, give millennials mentoring or they'll leave to go get it. Kind of said that earlier. If you don't give us the opportunities that we're looking for, we're going to leave. And that's how important mentoring is. We've shared lots of stats with you, I know, but it's so important that you understand that this is what we want, and we're willing to make changes, and we're willing to go where we have to go to get it. I'm originally from Louisiana. I moved to Dallas. I moved my entire family, 5, 6 hours away from where my kids started growing up and our families at, to somewhere where we don't really know anybody, because I knew that I had the opportunities to grow here in my career. And one of those big opportunities was mentoring. Now, did I plan to work for a company that focuses on mentoring? No, that was just kind of a bonus. But we're willing to make big changes to get what we want, and we want mentoring.
I did see some questions in, and we are definitely going to get to them at the end. We want to make sure that we get all the way through these slides. So we do see those questions, and we will address them here in just a few minutes.
All right, we're going to run through this pretty quick because we are running low on time. Matthew and I get a little chatty sometimes. All right, so we talked about ROI for the organization. That was the whole first section of this. We're going to briefly touch on mentees and mentors. This will be covered a little bit more in our next webinar. So what ROI are we getting from mentees? So the mentees I'm referring to are your millennials. Yes, millennials can be mentors, but for this instance, we're going to focus on them as the mentee. So we want to build trust and be a part of the culture, and mentoring is going to help do that. We want to work for an organization that cares, or I'm sorry, I said this earlier. We want to work for an organization that cares about people more than money. That's how we build our trust. That's how we become loyal, is that we know that you care about us. Necessary feedback, it's there again. We have a constant desire for feedback, and having a mentor is going to give that to us. We have someone there, good or bad, telling us what's going on, how we're doing, what we can do better. Meeting expectations. These are expectations that we have for ourselves based on what we see from the leaders that we're working for and from our peers. We're constantly comparing ourselves with everyone else. Social media is a huge thing where you can see that. Matthew said yesterday that he's seen sometimes where if someone posts something, that if they get no feedback, they will take it down.
I mean, I've never personally done that before. But no, it's a big thing. And there was one comment about the feedback, like what does that mean for meaningful feedback? But I think mentees, just like Katie was saying, it's just feedback in general. It doesn't have to be positive or negative. It sometimes not always even constructive. It's just letting you know, I've seen what this was done. This is how it went. Here's something to think about in the future. Or if it was done excellently, like that was great. Thank you so much. Because feedback doesn't always have to be in that format, or so many people have grown accustomed to that. You start off with, Katie, I really like that you showed up today on time, but that's the kind of feedback that is old. Nobody wants that, because then it turns that original compliment into nothing. Nobody wants it anymore. So that feedback, especially coming from a mentor, between the two, it can be much more genuine and just general information about what's going on.
All right, yeah, and that's how feedback and meeting expectations relate. When we have that feedback, we know that we're meeting our expectations because we're setting very high expectations based on what everyone else is thinking and what everyone else is doing, because we want to make sure that we're on track. That's our goal there. Let's see, at the end of the day, we want to succeed. And we know that being developed is going to do that. So career development. Mentoring is going to give us career development. It's going to push us forward in the direction that we're wanting to go, which is up. We want upward mobility. All right, we're going to run through this really quick because we're running out of time. No. All right, so what are the mentors going to get? As I said in the beginning, we want this to be a mutually beneficial relationship. So mentors are going to learn new skills. Even though they're not the mentee, they can learn something from millennials. We work in a very different way. We know a lot of different information, especially about technology. So being a mentor to a millennial is really going to help someone, especially a leader in your company, learn new skills. It's also going to help them close the generational gap. I did a whole webinar on closing the generational gap between baby boomers and millennials. Again, I don't have the link. I can share it in the email. But if you want to go watch that webinar, I think it's really great. And we do touch on millennials quite a bit in it, but it's going to bridge that gap between us. It's going to help them build stronger relationships with the millennial workforce. And then out of the box thinking, Matthew, I'm going to let you talk on this one a little bit because you said some really great things when we were talking about this, but you're going to think out of the box when you mentor a millennial. It's just going to happen.
It's just giving you the opportunity to really see what's going on and the different perspectives. And this kind of ties in a lot with the closes the generational gap, is that you may be doing something in one way for the longest amount of time as a mentor, maybe doing it for 20 years. But then when you have a mentee, you have the opportunity to share that information. And the best way to learn anything is to teach it to someone else. Because even when you're starting to describe it to someone else and they ask that question that will always pop up, why do we do it that way? Sometimes that's a moment to say, oh, you're right. I've been doing it this way for 10 years and I never really even thought about that. So it gives you the opportunity to expand what you already know and make it even better.
All right, almost there we go. Okay, so mentoring goals for millennials. We're going to just briefly touch on this because it is going to be in the next webinar. Onboarding, diversity, inclusion, career development, leadership development. These should be goals that you have for mentoring millennials, which means if it's starting at onboarding, we need to start mentoring millennials from day one. So you're attracting them. That's great. But if you don't have a mentoring program already in place, when they come, they're going to leave. They're not going to wait for you to set it up because that's something you've promised to them. So they want it from day one. They're onboarding. Hey, let's go. Diversity and inclusion, that's such a big deal right now. We are collaborative, like I said before. We want to be included and we want to have diversity and we want to work with all sorts of people and all sorts of ideas. And that's part of your culture. Career development, it's like beating a dead horse for this webinar. Career development. We want career development. And not only that, we talked about this last time, we want to be leaders in your companies. So having that leadership development is going to push us to the next level, push us up, get us where we want to go. I know that was really quick, but like I said, we are going to talk quite a bit about this in the next webinar next month. Speaking of the next webinar, part 3, Mentoring Millennials, we're going to talk about developing the program, and we are going to have a guest speaker, Judy Corner, who usually does the webinars with us. She is our mentoring consultant expert. We love Judy, and she has a lot of great insight on how you can develop your program specifically for millennials. So she'll be with us on November 7th. If you haven't already registered for that, I'm going to put a link in the chat box, and we can get you there. We hope to see you there. We've been loving doing this webinar series, so we want to keep going. Questions. All right, we have 5 minutes left. We will run over if y'all want to stick around with us. I don't mind spending a couple extra minutes with y'all. Let's see. I'm going to get to the questions. Could you provide an example of meaningful feedback? I know Matthew kind of touched on that one. For me, meaningful feedback is something that I'm going to really get something from. The only thing I really want to touch on, because feedback is different for every millennial, find out, ask. We are not afraid to tell you what we think. So for me, it might be, well, it's not meaningful when you just say you did a good job. I also want to know how I can do better. If I'm getting meaningful feedback, I want the critiques. Not everyone does well with that. That's just my personality. So ask your millennials what they find as meaningful. What percentage of millennials have an articulated purpose? How does that compare to other generations? I think most millennials have an articulated purpose. I don't have a stat sitting in front of me that can tell me that. I am happy to do the research and Philip get back to you on that. But I know I have an articulated purpose. My purpose is really to go to a company, be productive, help that company move forward. That makes me feel like I have a purpose in the work that I'm doing. I love digital marketing. I love social media. I even love analytics. I love all that nerdy marketing stuff. And I feel like when I do a good job there and when I'm able to continue to excel in my own position, that I'm helping my company, which is my purpose for my career. Matthew, yours might be totally different.
Actually, yeah, mine is much less PC. I know when I first entered the workforce, no purpose at all. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I wanted to go into this field, and here I go. But that's really where mentoring comes in, because that mentor is going to say, you're here now. You got the job. Hooray! What is your goal? And that mentor is going to work with that person to say, what do you want to see happen over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, next couple of years? And that's where the mentoring really comes into place, because a lot of people have big ideas of what they want to do, or they'll have their goals, but they don't have any actions towards those goals. Like, I want to finish this. Great. What is the path you're going to take to finish this idea? So, Philip, going off of your point too, I don't have the exact statistic, but there are going to be a group of people that don't have an articulated purpose. I don't think that's necessarily generational, though. It's just that personality, that person. That's where mentoring can come in to really help guide them to what they want to accomplish.
All right, Philip, I hope that answered your question. If not, please feel free to contact us. Do you see any difference in expectations between men and women? I think this is a great question because you got one of each of us here. So I'm going to go on the woman's side, obviously. I'm a bit of a feminist, sorry, but I do believe that there's still not equality in the workplace between men and women. So for me, my expectations are probably a little different from Matthew's because I feel like I have to push myself a million times harder than any other man that's in my position. Just because of the fact that I do have a family and I do have children. You know, when I started in Insala, I was 15 weeks pregnant, and that terrified me. And I don't know any man who's ever had to deal with that. I know that we've hired men whose wives were expecting, but there was never the issue of them not being at the workplace. So I felt like I had to be more productive, be more engaged. And it really honestly motivates me being a woman because I feel like I'm constantly having to prove myself. Luckily, I work for a company that kind of helps me go down a bit on feeling like that because they do acknowledge me and we get great feedback, and there is no separation between the men and women that work in Insala. We're all appreciated. We're all a great team, and our ideas are always taken and with the same amount of importance. But I have worked for companies where I felt like I had to go above and beyond everyone else simply because I was a woman.
Really, from the other perspective, I wouldn't even necessarily say it would be the men's perspective, but everything we really talked about today is really about career growth, career development, benefits, what we want to do. And I would say from that, without being too general, the millennial population, they all want that same idea. There could be different challenges involved and there could be different motivations involved, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to have their careers developed. Everyone wants to be invested in where they work. So in that point of view, men and women could have different expectations, but at the end of the day, the goal is kind of the same for everyone.
I definitely agree. I think that, at the end of the day, we do want those opportunities, man or woman. I just think we might approach it a little differently. Okay, last one. This is all the time we've got. We got a whole minute left. And I am going to put our links for our LinkedIn accounts. Please come connect with us. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. Real quick, how do you approach your mentor once you're in a mentoring program? Because sometimes they act like they don't have time. That's a really great question. We're actually going to cover that in our next webinar, so please come join us. But really, I think that if your mentor is not acting like they have time, approach them directly, have a conversation with them, let them know how important this is to you. This should be a relationship. This should be two people working together. And if they're not willing to give you the time, they might not be the right mentor for you. Mentoring relationships are going to really define the success of your actual mentoring program. So maybe the match wasn't right. Find a new mentor if it's not working out. Matthew, you might have more to say about that since you do our training.
I could talk for so long on this one idea, so I'll definitely save it for the next one. But my perspective definitely is the training and expectations. Sometimes people think being a mentor means just showing up, and that's not really a mentoring relationship. So from day one, when you get those mentors to sign up, explain to them, these are your expectations, this is what we expect from you. And once mentors go in knowing what they should be doing and what they have to accomplish with the mentees, usually that solves that problem quite a bit of time.
Yes, and like I said, we are going to cover that in the next webinar, November 7th. It was on the 14th, I think. We did have to change that date because I had a conflict. But I really hope that you all enjoyed the information we shared today. Be looking out for that email with the recording on it. It'll be coming out to you this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. I've had a great time talking about this, and I know Matthew has as well. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Bye-bye.